And I do have my Empower Women shirt on today.
That's
I don't know what your
awesome.
shirt says. I can't tell because the letters are a little bit lower. But it looks like we're live. This is good news. For anybody joining us live, I can see your chat. I can see the chat box. So go ahead and let us know you're there. Otherwise, we don't know that you're there. Say hi, say what's up, like send some questions, add your stories, your comments. We love that. And Kirti can't see. I'm the only one that can see right now. I'm the only one that has YouTube open. So I'm going to be watching that as I'm listening to her. So here we are. I'm Natasha Edwina. This is Kirti, and we are your regular co-hosts, and we are here to talk about something we both are very passionate about. Oh, there's Steffi. Hey.
Hey.
Steffi, thanks for supporting. We are here to talk about something that we both have some passionate comments and opinions about, which is boundaries with exes. And I think that on this topic, it's really interesting because I think that we can both come at it from similar angles and opposite angles based on different experiences that we've been having recently and in the past. So that being said, where do we start?
Well, I feel like let's describe all the types of boundaries that are being made, I guess, either from our clients, from the work that we're doing with them, or from our personal experiences. But I know, like for me, when you say boundaries with exes or with past lovers, it's funny. I actually am like, well, wow, I don't really even maintain very much of a relationship with my past lovers. Um, However, I have lovers who maintain relationships with their past lovers. And so sometimes that requires boundaries and a sense of creating boundaries. So what about you? What's another boundary that you do?
Yeah, well, I think I'm a little bit on the opposite of that because especially because I've been mostly single the last few years, 6 years or so, and weaving in and out of short-term relationships, situationships, dating situations, you know, friendships that kind of went romantic and then went back to friendships. And so it's a little less clear cut, my definition of an ex-lover or past relationship. And so since going through my divorce, I had this spiritual awakening. So all of the folks that have come into my life in that time are some form of soul tribe, and they're very
Right.
spiritually and divinely aligned, I felt, to get me here, and been such learning lessons. And there's some of those that the lessons are done and I don't need to pick it back up again, although I am very much interested in holding on to that relationship, but not, it might be once a year where I
Right.
say, hey, what's up? Like that for me, I don't have the desire necessarily to reach out unless something comes up where it's like, oh, it reminds me of that person, or I'm like, hey, happy birthday, and then it's just that. Or the other thing is, some of these folks are in different layers of my circle, kind of, in a closer, not necessarily maybe inner circle or not so inner circle. Then there's this other circle, then there's this circle, and they might weave back in and out because we're in this small mind body community or spiritual community. And so for me, I feel like I'm the one that's kind of trying to manage these relationships that in many times I forget that they were even a lover, because I think of them as my friend, or
Right.
somebody that maybe I forgot that we went on a date or whatever, but actually, because now it's more of a friendship or a business relationship or whatever else. And I guess in that way, I'm sort of emotionally polyamorous, even though I'm very much a monogamous
Mm.
oriented person. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Whereas my partner is more like you and like, cut it off, like it's done. Okay, we're done with that. Move here. So it's having to kind of negotiate like what that means, and maybe my partner not understanding why I might not want to just not ever talk to that person again, or
Right.
not want to
Right.
respond to their text messages. So yeah, but I feel me being such a monogamous person, I'm very clear that I don't get into a committed relationship unless I'm very much interested, unless I feel like that's the best thing for me, and I am all in. And so if I'm all in, then I'm all in. My energy is already there, and then I make the commitment. It's not like I make the commitment and then I'm struggling to put my energy there. So
Right.
if my energy is already there, then it's already there. And all I need to do is just remind these other energies that come in, like, this is where I'm at now. Hi, and then
Right.
defining that right away. So for me, that's how that boundary works. And if I have an ex, I've had this before, they start texting me with something that's subtly sexual, like this post or that thing, or I remember when we did this together or whatever else. And I'm like, no, like I either ignore that or I, set a clear boundary. Like, I don't want to talk about that because this is
How
what,
do they respond when you set a clear boundary? Like, and yeah, why, what makes you think, so you think even entertaining the idea of talking about that is overstepping a boundary?
I think you can feel the energy of where it's coming from.
Mm,
So if it was
yeah.
an intellectual conversation with somebody like yourself or somebody in our tribe that is literally doing this as a profession or an academic study,
Mm-hmm.
the sexual conversation would not be a boundary violation. But if this is coming from somebody who does not do this work intellectually or professionally, and they're bringing it up because they're wanting to, bring back that kind of walk down memory lane or something like that, then you feel it in your gut. And I think,
I agree. Yeah, I
yeah,
agree. You can definitely feel it.
yeah, there, and this is why this is such a important topic, I think, to have, because it's so subtle. It can be seem so innocent, but it's just those little subtle details.
Well, right, and I feel that, in especially in the situations that we're talking about, like, how we're kind of flipped in terms of our relationships. And of course, you're just like my partner who has like all these amazing loving relationships with, his past lovers. And it's actually like the triggers, I'm like, wow, that's amazing. I wish that I could do that as well. However, my relationships are such long term, in depth relationships that when they end, they have to like,
Yeah.
I mean, they're marriages, they were like they felt like very involved marriages. So
Right.
I think that that might be where it was different. But at the same time, this is really good because we're bringing in different perspectives. Um, but yeah, I feel like a lot of the boundary and understanding what somebody's intention is, um, it's deep because you also are bringing that in for a reason as somebody in partnership.
Hmm.
There's a reason. So my partner and I talk about this a lot. Like, of your house, like, well, do you still have your windows cracked open for that breeze?
Hmm.
Like, is that something like, is that an innate desire that you're not actually exploring that actually should be explored if it's an authentic expression of yourself, but you're limiting because you're afraid you'll hurt my feelings, or what will people say, or it's unacceptable. Like, you also want to make sure that the place from which you're creating boundaries is actually something that's honoring a personal evolution
Hmm.
that's going to help take you and your partnership to another level. Because
Yes.
I feel that in some ways, in other relationships I know my partner would not have been okay with me maintaining a close relationship with probably even men,
Hmm.
in general, friends, so that boundary is actually a little divisive and dominating,
Yep.
right? And it's not evolving the relationship. So it's really important to understand the nature of the boundary, um, and also to what level are you expressing yourself and also still seeking approval
Hmm.
from a past relationship or even a current one.
Sure, having that awareness. And we have a couple more comments. Joseph is saying, good evening. Nikita is saying, happy moon day, ladies. Perfect
Yeah.
topic. Thank you. Yeah. Well, two things came up for me, Kirti. And one was, there are some exes that I absolutely do not keep in touch with, and I have let go or, completely cut off from. And those are the toxic relationships, the ones
Mm.
that were abusive, the ones where I had no interest in maintaining any tie and needed to take a clean break. So I want to put that out there for everybody. Like, there's no reason to entertain, those relationships. And some relationships just go because there's nothing there connecting
Right.
you don't even have things in common anymore. You grew apart or whatever else, and those, for me, even if they weren't toxic, have also just fizzled and disappeared. Most of them more so just slowly fade away, right? Unless you keep that connection in some way. And then even if you keep that connection, it's like, at what level? It's at a very, maybe not even if it's a superficial level, but very sporadic, or like sending a Christmas card type of level. And so that speaks to what you're saying, where you're wanting to preserve and protect, and where are you going with your energy in this relationship that you're currently in. Or like we were saying before we started recording, or before we went live, is how do you protect and maintain that space? So there's some goddesses on here that are like, I want to call in my king. I want to be in a stellar relationship. I want to be a mother. I want to create a family. I want all of this deep, like, non-traditional, non-patriarchal, new kind of relationship that's based in equality. But how do I create the space to love on myself and to be treating myself the way that I want to be treated? And you can't do that if you're constantly fielding these messages from ex-lovers who are reminding you of the way that you didn't quite get treated in the way that you wanted to be treated, or maybe just almost there, but they did this. And so it's like protecting that space even, and being really clear with your energy. And then the other thing that comes up is when you're in that relationship, obviously, as we all know, with quarantine and lockdown, too much time together is pretty stagnant. Things get stagnant. That is just the nature of energy. If it doesn't have a window to blow in or blow out and refresh sometimes, and it doesn't mean that you go out and, put your genitals in somebody else. It means that
Right.
you have something stimulating you, friends, other things, separate
Right.
interests, a separate life that creates enough distance to have a magnetism again, that gets you closer together. So that's that, in family therapy terms, we call that, in systems therapy, it's the individuation. How do you have
Right.
your own individual wholeness and yet stay connected? And that is the healthiest, most passionate relationship. And honestly, my bias as a marriage and family therapist, and this is why I'm so interested in the polyamory community and learning about it. And I know I'm following some of your mentors now, Kendra, right? Yeah, Progressive Love
Oh,
Academy.
Kenya.
Kenya. Okay. Progressive Love Academy, because I'm just so curious in how she does it, especially because it is not a patriarchal polyamory system. And my clients over the years that have been in polyamorous relationships, or my friends that have been in polyamorous relationships, I'm hearing all of the goings on, and I'm thinking, this is not an integrity. And
Right.
not only that, but it's escaping, it's a running away when things get hard. You go to it's a triangle. It's like there's this happening, and so they go to the other one, and then it's like, okay,
Right.
now things are cooled down, I'm going to come back to you, instead of engaging
Exactly.
in self-care and sticking with it and being like,
Right.
oh god, this hurts, like this sucks, it's painful, but how do we breathe through it, or like self-regulate through it to actually go deeper? And that's how you move to the second level. So I'm not opposed to polyamory. I'm just wondering, can you do it in a way that it's not avoidance, and it allows you to still go really deep and transcend? And I believe that's possible. I just have yet to see anybody fully doing that long term, right?
Right. Yeah, and I think that definitely comes to the root of both topics that you brought up, both sides of that, which it's about communication, and honesty ultimately. And a lot of times when you see broken hearts in the polyamorous community, it's because we're not really accepting, giving, and receiving from a place of authentic truth and integrity. Because if you truly love all of the people that you're involved with, you should be able to be completely honest with them, and nobody should be taking that personally.
Yeah.
And that's where the work lies, right? And that's not just work that's about polyamory, that's just like work in life. But when you do this in a polyamorous level where you're in relationship with others, the rate of growth and learning and understanding is really fast, because you're dealing with lots of people in their vulnerable position. So it has the opportunity to be something awesome and amazing. And I have to say that, working with Progressive Love Academy, I've seen it be awesome and amazing. I've gone to a couple of their conferences. I'm actually currently getting certified in her level of coaching, and that my partner and I got coached through, because I feel really moved to help others the way we've been helped. And I've been able to really step into understanding that even boundaries, the concept of boundaries is really just, it's like realizing your space, like your what space you take, or what is your role in your relating, and the boundaries is really about just honoring that. And so when you allow somebody to actually, if you flex your boundary, or you're willing to open a gate within your boundaries, it's like an initiation. That's the way it kind of, it has started to become for me. And then when you couple with somebody, then you have this awesome time to like connect, and then you guys create your boundaries together. But then you also, in order to create boundaries together, you both have to be very clear on your independent boundaries, and you as sovereign beings within a relationship that has your own needs, your own desires, and quite frankly, your own purpose on this planet. And
Right.
ultimately, your partner is there to support your purpose on this planet, not to attach you, claim you, or to partner and like collaborate with you. And it's really like, as long as it serves both of you
Mhm.
completely and fully. And so that requires work.
Yeah.
And in a polyamorous situation, you want to look for, the idea is that, the woman, or the one in the dominant feminine energy of the partnership,
Mhm.
is creating the boundaries and the agreements into which other partnerships are allowed. And those agreements are supporting her healing.
Yeah, I saw a short video by Kenya just the other day. I think she was promoting a webinar that she was doing, and it was pretty humorous because she was saying that um, somebody wrote in, she has women that write in and say, I can't get my husband or my male partner to agree to polyamory. And she said, they all already do it. Like they want to do it. They just don't want you to do it. And so you got to figure out like how to let them let you do it, and then you figure out what you want. So I feel like that kind of speaks to what you're saying, which is the woman decides. And interestingly enough, I'm having this conversation with my daughter because she has a boyfriend now, her first boyfriend, or maybe not her first, but like, she's 13, and it's like, this is like, she's in 8th grade. So this is when relationships start to get a little bit more like relationships. It's not just notes passed that defines who a boyfriend is. It's like you actually spend time together, and first kisses happen, and all of this. And so having to explain to her that you set the boundary, you set the pace, you know more about what feels good to you. So, being a young man or young boy in this culture, even if he is the sweetest thing ever, which I've met him and he is,
Oh.
like he is still going to want to go forward faster, fast, 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 because that's what our culture tells boys to do. And that we, they're both dealing with hormones or whatever. So we're trying to talk to her about like, okay, learn your body first, learn
Mhm.
where, what, because ultimately you are a woman, and your whole life you're going to have to teach your partner your body. You're going to have to teach your partner, your turn on, this sort of thing. And it's like trying to do this next level sex education that I did not get, and I had to figure out. And she's already way ahead of her peers. And the other thing, because she overhears these shows, and these in this house, so she's already, privy to a lot of this stuff. So it's like you're thinking like, no, little boy is going to come in and just like, you know try to run some game or some show or whatever else. So it's really an interesting topic that relates to the woman setting the boundary and the feminine energy setting the boundary. I think that's a really valid point.
Yeah,
um
I mean, the idea is that the masculine energy, the masculine energy might state the desire, might states what is wanted,
mhm,
what change or what you want to see happen, what action, what
mhm,
shift. And the feminine actually expresses, well, how that shift can take place. And that really is creating, it's creating a very beautiful boundary instead of it being like, well, X, Y, and Z. It's more like, okay, well, I hear what you would like to happen. This is how it's going to happen. It's almost like the strategy we use with children. It's like, do you want to eat your vegetables before dinner, or do you want to eat your vegetables after you play video games?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, before dinner. And it's like, okay, cool. But they're still going to eat their vegetables. So the boundaries are going to get made, but it's nice because the feminine is just responding to the masculine's request. And my offering in that, and we practice that with Progressive Love Academy as a couple. Who's in the feminine energy, who's in the masculine, and learning how to understand who's in that energy at that time, and then how to facilitate those conversations. And then when I started to work with women who were coming to me about sensuality, or they were wanting to increase and heighten their creativity in their businesses, or whatever things they were coming to work through, I started to notice, like, wow, a lot of the women that were coming to me were coming from such a wounded masculine, or toxic even masculine place, because their boundaries had been so flexed and almost kind of ransacked, that they were so protective and armored to even be able to start to work into some sensuality and empowering work for them, because it was like even that was not feeling safe. And so I started to realize, like, wow, the masculine energy is so wounded and has actually taken a toll on the feminine. We started to create the same work that we were doing with couples and that we learned to do as a couple. I just took that and was like, all right, let's find the couple inside of you. And it really worked well together with some personal selves integration, meditation stuff with the divine masculine and feminine, and just starting to create these agreements between your own masculine and feminine. We talked about this the last time, where
Yeah.
you just think of it, that this ball going across court, and the masculine and the feminine, kind of having this beautiful dance together of coming up with a solution that really honors your ultimate desire, and really believing that no matter what you want is possible. It's just about speaking your truth, finding that alignment, and then you'll start to magnetize all the opportunities to do exactly what you truly really want to do. So yes, I think that the conversation around boundaries is important for so many reasons, because when you're in a relationship, like you said, you want to also do this thing of sovereignty, and then also you want to have boundaries with your other relationships so they honor your current relationship.
Oh gosh, yeah. So that's a big one too, right? Because everybody kind of has different relationship agreements and different ways that, last time you were talking about flirting with your guy friends and all the, everybody has different things that are allowed or not allowed or not allowed, depending on your couple agreement, not because it's, something written in stone or whatever else. So yeah, absolutely. There's so much to look at. And also, as you're saying, I notice that it's not always even about boundaries with exes or boundaries in relationships. It's like your boundaries with your clients, your boundaries with your bosses, your boundaries with your time. And I now know for me, being a therapist and a social worker for over 20 years, my boundaries are excellent with my clients and with my work, and in what's appropriate and not appropriate. And that's super easy for me to do after so much practice. But boundaries for my own personal time in my personal life, that is still something that's difficult for me, because I am such a caretaker, and I am pretty flexible. I have Libra rising. I think you have moon in Libra. So, and you're on the cusp of Libra. So I know you identify, and we share this, where it's like we want to nurture and be nurturing and available to our loved ones. And then I have to train myself to think of myself first, because I automatically think about somebody else. And I don't even know, like you said, you have to be clear in what you want before you can even state it
Mhm.
and enforce it. And so for me, I'm like, yeah, whatever flows is clever, whatever works for everybody. But if I do have a clear boundary, I will state it. I have no problem stating that. But it's like I'm so flexible that I don't even realize my boundaries have been crossed sometimes until I'm feeling totally depleted.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And my shit isn't getting done. And then I'm like, roar, and screaming. So I feel like, the boundary lesson goes across so many different areas. It's so related, and you can be good in one area and still slide in another.
Well, and the truth is, if you don't have clear boundaries with your family, and if you don't have clear boundaries with the intimate relationships in your life, those that lack of clarity is definitely going to show up in your partnership. Like that's a, especially if you're in a partnership that's dedicated to conscious relating, that's dedicated to evolving, and that has family involvement in it, right? And we all come with our families, whether they're our children, our uncles, our mothers, our brothers, our sisters. And if we don't come with our families, we end up creating our own families with societies and tribe. We're just kind of like tribal people.
Yeah.
So the boundaries that we have in our most intimate relationships are pretty crucial. And I've been realizing it's really amazing how the last boundary navigating I had to do with my partner that did actually involve, a relationship, friendship slash relationship that was, that we were nurturing between him and a past lover. What actually that ended up really exposing me to was boundaries with my father and my brother.
Mm.
And I realized that I had created this situation with, you know, my partner and his past lover, and him wanting to maintain that loving connection that you're talking about, that I think is just, I mean, I find it amazing. I'm want to do that with I want to do that moving forward. I'm so committed to that. I really do believe in it. However, I haven't really had that much experience, so I'm like trying to nurture it along and be like, okay, like as long as we're doing the honesty thing and we're getting it, and man, he's been completely honest. He lets me know everything that's going on between them, and we really work on how to create, how we continuously progressively vent and communicate with each other, all of that. And guess what? Still, there's triggers, right? Like, because I haven't dealt with the boundary issue with my father and my brother, which is really more deeply rooted than this current boundary issue with my current relationship and his past lover. So, what's very interesting is like when you're ready and willing to do the work, you start to, once you get to one trigger that might be like surface level, or surface level, um, if you're willing and you start to do the work, you'll start to see all of the roots. And
Okay.
then what you get to do when you're ready, and you have to be ready and willing, you've got to be willing to heal the root. And then you can trust that all the growth above that, just like in gardening, once you trim that root of whatever, wherever that issue is on your plant,
Mm-hmm.
you allow the energy, the alchemizing energy of the sun and the nutrients of the soil, you redirect it in a different way, and
Mm-hmm.
it nurtures other healthy relationships that are going on. And that builds momentum, which then builds more manifestation energy to create more healthy relationships, where now you can actually start to talk to your partner about, hey, it's okay for us to have a romantic friendship, right? Like I could flirt with a friend, because you're now in a place where you've done this evolving together. um
And it has, and yeah, and it has to be like, you have to not only evolve together but have that solid, rock solid connection, right? So that it's unshakable. Because
yeah, and Progressive Love Academy is the one that has really helped us see
mm-hmm.
master monogamy is their first is when, I mean, they really only work with marriages that are 10 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
They know Shofar from his work. So when I reached out to them, from, I've just been watching her, I was so inspired by her. And when I had filled out the interest form, his name is so unique that she was like, wait a minute, is this, Oh, so far. I was like, yeah. She was like, oh man, yes, of course I love to, but really typically they work with marriages that are 10 plus years because they want to work with couples that have mastered monogamy, have gone through a lot of that stuff and stuck it through. One of their tenets is no cop out, no dropout.
Mm,
And because Show and I may have not have been, I mean, if you counted our lifetimes, we've been together for so long, right? But in this lifetime, in this current reality, it was like that was one of my big things was like I was ready to cut it, be out, protect myself, be safe. Like, oh, I'm not gonna get fucked over again. Like
yeah.
this isn't gonna happen to me again. That was a big working through. And
Mm,
so that's one of the boundaries that he actually had to lay down with me was like, yo, no cop outs, no dropouts. Like no matter what, you
yeah.
can't walk out of this. I'm
Yeah.
so committed to you. And I had to like do whatever I could to make that like my daily mantra so that when I was triggered with him, I wasn't ready to just be out, you
Yeah.
know?
It's like, yeah, it's emotional flooding. I totally identify with that. And because of that, that's, one of our agreements as well. You don't leave. Even during a fight or whatever, you don't leave. You can step away, but say when you're going to come back, that sort of thing. And that that helps. And also I was going to say that, not even past lives considered, the two of you, I've been around you. I've seen the way you communicate. When you have this conscious relationship, it's like you can do in a couple months what other couples do in years, right? There's
Mm,
that closeness, that connection. And this is conscious relationships. They are hard. I'm realizing how hard they are
yeah.
because you're so authentic and everything's coming up and you're not leaving and you're sticking with it because you're both committed to growing. That's what it is. It's mindfulness. Mindfulness is not easy. It's easy to smoke a joint. It's easy to have 5 glasses of wine. It's easy to eat a bunch of sugar and numb out. It's easy to bounce and go party and get yourself drunk or
Sometimes it's easy to just have sex too, right?
whatever. Fuck somebody else, or each other or whatever, and just not talk about it. It's easy to do. It's easy to triangulate the child and start over focusing on the child. It's easy to go be a workaholic. These are the things that are the norm in our society, unfortunately, and this is why people like me, have clients continually and will always be employed. But and you as well, because you're dealing with these folks, in a more non-traditional, non-therapy way. But it's like it's hard to sit and just work through the shit and feel the triggers coming up and dive deep and like feel the pain and not run away from it and breathe through it and do whatever you need to do to get through it and keep choosing each other and stay connected. And yeah, that's a very hard thing. And what you're saying too with having the deeper roots, I can share an example that just kind of came into my awareness today even. So I haven't even spoken to my partner about this yet, but it was just a silly fight over a smoothie, and he offered very kindly to make me a smoothie because he saw that I was like overdoing it, not getting my stuff done. It was like out of the purest, sweetest intentions. And yet, I'm such a health nut and there's certain things that I eat and don't eat to support some food allergies and health issues or whatever. And he basically put so much sugar in the smoothie and no protein. And I was just, I tasted it. I was just in shock. Like I was like, like kind of thing, which he made it how he would like to have it, and I, before I could even stop the words from coming out of my mouth, I had said something super bitchy, right? And I was like, whoa, even to the point like right after I said it, I was like, oh man, like that was so bitchy. And so like very quickly I apologized, but the damage had been done. And so, this is like days later and I'm still reflecting on it. I'm like, where did that come from? And putting it together today, talking with, one of my coaches too. And we were talking about something else, but now I'm seeing these patterns, right? And it comes up and I'm realizing that I had a father who was not prepared to have children when he did. And so he was dealing with immaturity and alcoholism, and therefore there was some emotional neglect and some other, issues where he is just not the type of man who's very perceptive and knowing what my needs are. And here I have this partner that is incredibly perceptive and knows what my needs are, sometimes even before I do. And I'm like, how could he give me this smoothie that is like not at all what I would want? So there's that. So that's the original, like we're talking about the childhood
Mm.
root, the core, the conditioning, like you're talking about with your dad and your brother. And then I'm in a marriage, in a relationship for 10 years with somebody who neglected my needs, but also did it manipulatively,
Right.
purposely, to agitate me and turn the screw and push the buttons to a
Right.
point where I would react. And that was what they were looking for, is an emotional reaction to steal that energy and be like, ha ha ha, kind of thing. And so I got caught into, I went from one dynamic to now another dynamic where the intentions in all three of these situations, father, marriage, and now current partner, are completely different intentions, but it's the
Mm.
same results and pattern that I'm responding to, which is my needs, feeling like my needs are being neglected, not met, I'm feeling unseen, this sort of thing. And so I realized I developed this habit after 10 years of being bitchy, of fighting back, like rah rah rah, or why didn't, and getting, letting that frustration out, also feeling kind of trapped in this marriage with these small children. And then now I'm out of that. I've been out of that for 5 or 6 years. I've been able to look at these patterns and been able to heal these patterns. And yet now I'm in a relationship, and what it comes out without even knee jerk reaction, an old pattern. It just shows you how deep it is. And so then what do? This is what I talked about with my coach. Like, you get
Yeah.
really good at repairing, right? You get really good at repairing. But the boundary for me, and of course we processed it later and all as well, but the boundary for me is also stating my needs. So I thought, well, aren't I worth it enough to have my partner or my friend or whoever learn how to put these ingredients, three ingredients together in the way that supports my health? Aren't I worthy enough? Or aren't I worth having that level of care? Or aren't I worthy enough to be made love to in the way that not only is pleasurable but really drives me wild or turns me on? And as women, we're often not given that luxury, so even that is a boundary.
Mm.
So it's like, how do we have to first come to terms with that, and then find out where the roots are, and then stay firm in that, and know that
Right.
when we are stating our boundaries, we are not being demanding, we are not being pushy. And yet that's what sometimes we'll be accused of by whoever does not want to honor that boundary at first, because they are not used to women behaving that way. And if women have an opinion, it's such a patriarchal conditioned response. But if they have an opinion, it's like, oh, you're demanding, you're pushy, you're too loud, you're bitchy. And it's like, no. And I think that's why it's really important for us sometimes when we're asserting these boundaries to stay calm, to stay
Mm-hmm.
compassionate, to stay gentle, to use this language that is very gentle, especially when we're talking to a masculine partner that might be in their masculine energies. Also, something I've
Mm-hmm.
seen you do well, with your communication skills and the way that you talk to your partner. And I
Mm.
want to look
Yeah,
at.
there's something in when I teach mantra medicine, I call it like elemental washing or elemental expression, elemental communication. But basically, it's like understanding the interplay of the elements and that they're all inside of you. And if you really can own that the elements are inside of you, so if you're feeling fire about something, if you're feeling very heated, think about what is the quality of fire. The quality of fire is to transmute, to alchemize. So there's a desire in you that is wanting to shift something, and it's feeling inaccessible if it's becoming anger, and it's overpowering if it's passion,
Mhm.
right? But either way, when we're out of our realm of just like calm and peace, it's a trigger. So it can be either like passionate or it could be anger. They both kind of are equal and opposite away from the norm of your, balanced way of being. So if you're in the fire, if you're in a strong fire either way, what I try to do is I access what calms fire down, what would soothe fire, and usually water. So I'll speak and I will feel the element of water to try to calm my fire. And I literally will try to imagine that I'm feeling water. Now this does not always happen. Sometimes in my vents I am very much fire. Um, but the beauty of communication and communication protocols is that it allows for you to be and own the emotion that you're in, where the other person doesn't take it personally, and it's just like it's like healing. The other person's like, okay, I can hold this for you while you heal and have your little inner child tantrum. And that is actually allowing water to even come up. That is, you have to be soothable. You
Mm-hmm.
see, that's the big piece of this the tantrum work. Tantric tantrum work.
Tantrum.
Exactly. In order to have a
A
tantric
webinar.
tantrum, you have to be you have to know that um one, it's like it's orgasmic, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Kenya actually just recently in one of our classes, somebody had said, we were talking about the communication protocol, and really it does start with like a vent where like you're able to just be in full expression, like brah brah brah, this is what I'm feeling, this is how it felt for me, rah rah rah. And then what you and I are doing right now, the processing, right? It's like, okay, you got it. Now it's like time to let that shit go. You gotta like go take it now. It's time to like take a dump, let it go, so you can like be light and digest new information, a new way of being. And sometimes we even avoid going into our emotions and the vents. And you see that because people will immediately want to go into process the trigger. Oh my God, I totally see what's happening right now and why I'm doing this. And this is leading to this. But it's like you have to make sure that you're processing that seed emotion though.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't do the emotions, and honestly, my partner is always catching me in this, and he's like, you're going into processing and ownership, and you haven't you're still in vent. Like you got to get into the emotion. Like tell me how it feels. Like you don't have to justify yet or see where it's coming from. But I know it's because there's a part of me that feels ashamed for feeling triggered.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I immediately want to go into like, oh, and let me psychoanalyze it to show you that like I'm not still there. I've done the work. But the truth is like, no, it's okay.
It's
There's
so
parts
easy
of you
for us
that
to
are
see that
there.
when we're intellectual, right? It's like that's our comfort zone. Like, let me figure this out before I actually feel it. You don't
Exactly.
digest it, you just hold on to it, and then it's always there and it never goes away.
Right. And that's so she was saying when I said that, I was like, what is that like? Like when clients do that and like they're in if you find that they're in the emotions, but they're immediately already able to process, like, do we keep them in the emotion or do we allow them to go into process? And she's like, that's like saying you don't care about having an orgasm. You just want to have sex.
Mm,
She's like, the fucking the biggest shebang. It's when you actually get to feel your wild animal release, let go, and it's just like, and it doesn't, practice venting, it doesn't have to be when you're only angry and frustrated. It could be like, oh my God, could you hold space? I'm so excited about this new career opportunity. Or, oh my gosh, I met this guy and can you hold space for me while I just verbally orgasm about this new connection I made?
yeah. And it's
Like we have to consistently allow ourselves to express, and we have to train not only our partners but our friends and our family. What does it look like to honor each other and hold space for each other while we do that? Because that's what the work is. But it seems so woo woo, or it seems so cliche or therapeutic in families where they're like, what, hold space, what? So we have to find language that makes this applicable to people who aren't like signing up and know what the word vent and dump and hold space and ownership and process. Like not everybody's family, friends, and lovers are functioning this way. So
most
a
are
big
not.
part is like, let's find language that's accessible for people to do this if they're not spending huge amounts of money, but that they can still start this work.
Yeah, and that's why, you and I do the kind of work that we do to teach. A lot of it is just teaching people skills and then helping them, get into action and move through using those skills and reminding them, keeping them accountable to use those skills. And I think what you just said answers Steffi's question. She asked a while back, what can be done when someone ignores a boundary? And that is you teach them how to, honor your boundaries. So I know, Steffi, you're somebody that's very good with boundaries. Like you will say it right away, like what you want or expect. You don't hold back, that kind of thing. But you also, embody a lot of love in your communications with others. And so that's felt. So
Yeah, and I mean, that's an interesting thing because we always have to remember the equal and opposite energy. So it's like if you're somebody that really sets strong boundaries in one area of your life and you're very clear on that,
mhm,
go to the equal and opposite of that.
mhm,
And that's probably a place where you'll find it's a little bit more chaotic and you feel overwhelmed.
mhm,
And so that helps you be like, oh, okay, I'm going to create some more boundaries here. And where I feel like I'm super stringent in my boundaries, how can I be a little bit more playful or loose, and like where am I armoring and where am I, because we're always trying to create equilibrium. We're never trying to just like, one is winner, one is loser. That's just not the nature of existence.
and it's so
So
easy to be ultra loose with your boundaries, and it's so easy to be ultra tight with your
exactly.
boundaries. The hard part is, just like it's easy to be passive, it's easy to be aggressive, but who's really assertive, who has those really good boundaries? And I'd say I know very few people who are masters at this. So this is a topic that can go on, and I know we're veering off a little bit with the ex lovers. We'll get back to it. It's all,
Yeah.
we're kind of winding around. So yeah,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
actually have something to take us back to the ex-lovers piece.
Okay.
So oftentimes when you're in partnership, or even if you're somebody that's whatever, quote unquote, single,
Mhm.
solo, you're just like doing your thing, and you're not maybe
Still mingling.
monogamous. Right, you got your rotation going on.
Yeah, in
uh,
the rotation.
what's that?
In the rotation, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Um, what I've noticed happens, and this is definitely, I see this trend with my clients, and I love it. I think it's just so exciting, and it's funny because often people are like, "Why is this happening?" But try to flip the script and flip your perspective on it, and then you'd be like, "Oh, this is why it's happening."
Mhm,
So a big thing that I notice is that as we do the work and as we start to fall in deeper in love with ourselves, and we start to learn how to speak from a place of alignment, and we start to move our bodies freely, we start to make sound freely or express our voice and realize that we are ultimately safe as we feel in our own bodies, and we just start to develop this trust in ourselves that we've kind of been externally seeking but we know is internally where it's at. As we do that and you shift, it's like you shift your radio signal, all your satellites, which literally chakras, a lot of times folks who see energy and see the chakras see them as these concave discs.
mhm,
And they can see them actually projecting in and out or either spinning in one direction or another. And it's literally, as you do this work, your energy centers start to project a different beam of light out.
hmm,
And what happens is that beam, right, is seen by those who are ready to see that beam.
yep. Which relates to our next show.
Yes. And so as you do that, when you're traversing the like overlap of these beams, what happens, because time is not linear, but time is relative,
Mhm,
what happens is that all these spaces and places and time that are in your, where you had the feeling of being in a high beam energy of being loved, being adored, and being honored. This is what I think happens because my partner, he's like that. He
mhm,
just has that beam with all his past lovers, and I always notice that when we have amazing love, when we make the most amazing love, and when we're like doing amazing sex magic work,
mhm,
that week, guaranteed 4 to 6 of his past lovers will reach out. And it's always like, at first I'd be like, what? I'm like in this goo goo gaga space with you. And like and like you're like in this goo goo gaga space where it's like so many. Like, and at first I would get like a little jealous, and then I'd get comparative and like, wait, what is lacking in me that you need, that there needs to be 6? Like, why do I only need one of you and you need like this many? And
mhm,
all of those conversations. But then as we started doing the work deeper and deeper, we started to see that like high beam begets high beam in all time frequencies. So all of the moments where he felt high beam with his past lovers, that all gets turned on.
mhm,
All those radio channels get turned on, and all of them, because they're deep amazing women, clearly, because that's just the nature of his connecting and relating, we're a little different. My history of connecting is as a little bit more of a rocky road. His is definitely more like
Mhm.
evolving in that way. They feel that beam and they totally tune in and they connect. Now, my older self saw that as a threat.
Mhm.
My wise medicine woman self now realizes that that is confirmation that we are doing high level work while we're making love. So
Mhm.
now when he tells me like, oh, so and so reached out to me, I'm just like, of course they did. And it's like, wow, that's amazing. Like I'm changing the perspective, and we have to change our perspectives in order to allow this new way of thinking and being really take root on the planet.
Mhm. Absolutely. I mean, when my partner and I first connected and things really locked in, both of our phones were like ding, 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 ding. We're like, I knew exactly what was happening. I was like, oh, this is a good sign. This is, like you said, confirmation. So if I would say for anyone listening, if you're in that situation, or even I think it happens also when you are not in a relationship and you are going to get a pedicure and you are taking care of yourself and you just up leveled and you're speaking your truth and you're doing all this stuff, you'll get the ding, 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 and use that as confirmation, not as an invitation to
Right.
go and re-engage and backslide into a pattern that you don't necessarily want. Sometimes you can re-engage and clear up an old communication and speak your truth now and heal that little cord. But yeah, I think that's an indication that things are good. And it's similar even when you're setting boundaries with your family and you get that pushback and like, well, you're a bitch, or you're too demanding, or I don't know who you think you are, you're selfish, like that is
Defensive.
also
That's the
your
one I get.
confirmation
You're
that
so defensive.
yeah.
So defensive.
And if you I mean, I'm not saying like don't listen to that, but you can listen to it and be like, is that true of my character? When my friends say that about me, with my boss, with my colleagues, and then you're like, no, that's not me. And then you know that's confirmation. They're just rebelling against your boundaries. They're
Right.
seeing that power up level, and it's a shift. And it's like the little mobile above the crib with all the little circus animals hanging down. You just cut one off when you up leveled and you start doing things differently. Now the whole system is like this, and they're like, wait a minute, bring us back to balance, even if it's not a healthy balance. And so when they go like this, it's not your job. You were the one that up leveled. They got to lighten their load now so that they can come up and meet you.
Totally. And I think that there's some, you know, I'm just like looking, I'm like, wow, it's already 8 o'clock already. That's crazy.
I
But
know.
like there's some really easy tools to heal flexed boundaries that I would love to offer, just like some tools that, that you can do. I'm somebody that, functions inside the body and really feels that that really helps me
Mhm.
integrate somehow. Now, somebody, if you're a visual person, maybe like creating a piece of art or a vision board of like how you want to re-envision your boundaries. So
Mhm.
visually creating that. If you're somebody that's a verbal person, you might want to write a poem
Mhm.
or create some type of verbal expression or poetry that is recasting a spell of
Mhm.
of recreating your boundaries,
You
right?
know
If
what
you're a
comes up for me is like a
musician,
script, like writing out a script, like
right? A
when you
letter.
think, yeah, like it's, or to me, like this is what I do with my clients a lot because I do this 24/7 kind of on call service for my highest VIP package. Is like text me and I will give you a script to text back to that person as an outsider so that you can stay calm, neutral, and get and set a very clear, concise boundary.
Love that. I love that. Yeah, I love that. It's like the writing and speaking piece is always about you're ready to recast that spell and put it out into the universe. And then as a musician or a musical person, creating a playlist,
Mm,
writing songs where
oh,
the lyrics express your heart's truest desires around boundaries, or writing a song or creating a piece of music if that's who you are, banging it out on a drum, like what you're feeling. These are all like really great ways to heal boundaries that have been overstretched,
mhm,
because what you do is you're again, you want to access, and when you want to heal places that have boundaries that have overstretched, you want to access the places, again, always go equal and opposite. Access the places where the boundaries feel very strong in your life.
Mhm.
Access that feeling in your body. Where are you strongest with your boundaries? Like, so for you, Natasha, you said, I'm very clear on the boundaries with my clients and in my profession, in my business. And I would agree, like, that is something that very inspires me very much about you. Like, you are very clear about what you do, how to get involved with what you do, and what it looks like. And people understand really clearly what working with you looks like, feels like, and what they can expect. It's very clear. So, that taking that energy, feel that in your body. So like, let's just do that for a second. And for me, let's see, where do I feel clear about? Ooh, I feel oh shit, I know exactly where I feel very clear with my boundaries. I feel very clear with my boundaries about my art.
Mm.
And what I will and will not do with my creative expression. I am so motherfucking clear on that shit. All right,
Mhm.
so we're gonna go in and we're gonna really fill our bodies up with that clarity of like how we know how to be. And then we're going to take this energy where we feel the most shaky. Where do you feel like your boundaries have been overstretched? Kind of like elastic that gets used and used and used, and it's like, wah. It's kind of this like flaccid elastic, right? So we're going to take that and we are going to use the feeling of where we feel strongest. And with our breath, we are going to infuse that overstretched elastic band and give it some tightness. So you're going to access one part of yourself and the feeling. And with our breath, we're going to pull that feeling into our another memory and another place that we're feeling now, right? And that helps us access. So that means remembering something of the past can actually allow us to access the present and the future. So we're going to just use that with our feeling. So let's just do that for maybe 9 breaths. Access the feeling where we feel the strongest. Okay. All right. So let's close our eyes. And actually, I invite you to, if you don't want to close your eyes right now, you can actually find something to just use your drishti. Drishti is a Sanskrit word for just a gaze, a nice relaxed gaze on a flame or like a part of a joint of a window or a joint of a door if you want to keep your eyes open, but somewhere that holds your focus. And as you breathe, begin to feel and use your imagination to feel an area or place in your life where you feel very strong in understanding your boundaries. And start to think of moments where you've been able to use your boundaries to get what you wanted and to respect and honor yourself and your work. So I'm already realizing the no's that I say to certain gigs. So start to realize the values of your no's and how that created some strong, effective boundaries. Coughing is good because that's a big part of my boundary is verbally expressing my no's. And then also give time to the equal and opposite, how yeses in this area of your life have allowed your boundaries to be super strong. The things you say yes to with your clients, with your relationship, where you say yes and it's like, boom, solid. Yes, this is a strong decision. It's taking me higher. Beautiful. So as these strong areas in your life where you have really allowed yourself to honor yourself come through and clear, allow each inhale to receive that strength and allow each exhale to root deep, deep into the ground. Each inhale receive the blessings and the medicine of your strong yeses and nos, your aligned communication. And as you exhale, really envision rooting and grounding in that strength. A good way to do this is inhale and fill up the belly. And as you exhale, keep the belly full and push the energy down through the feet into the ground and really ground with the fullness of the bottom half of your body. This is a trick that we use as dancers is we really ground our body in for our footwork. Inhale, release all of that, receive it fully. Fill up the belly. Good. And as you exhale, keep the belly full and ground through the feet. Beautiful. Take 2 more breaths, feeling the strength of your yeses and nos. Allow your higher self to show you how your wisdom has really paid off with your boundaries. Beautiful. Now I'd like you to access your higher self. And this is the place that you know all is love. Nobody means to hurt anybody. We're all trying our best and we're doing our best. And what are some words or totems, symbols that come through that are representative of this strength of your yes and no in your life? Allow those totems or words to come clear. Take your next 3 to 5 breaths to really focus on allowing the subconscious to reveal symbols and totems of strength in the places in your life where you have had great boundaries that have paid off and served your evolution. And as those totems and words come clear, we give thanks to our ancestors for all messages through the subconscious, our reflection of their desire for us to heal, not for ourselves, but for them and their lineages as well. We give thanks to the elements, and we give thanks to ourselves. Begin to just wiggle the toes, move the body slightly, coming back, coming across into this parallel realm, realizing we're here with this technology and knowing that we can always go to that place inside of ourselves. And lastly, just allow the eyes to slightly flutter open. And I'd love to hear about your words and maybe a symbol or a totem that came through for you, if it did.
Oh, absolutely. I'm very visual, so I always have a lot of imagery that comes through. And the first thing I felt when you were talking about the tightness and the looseness of the boundaries was like, I've dislocated my left knee twice in my younger years, and it's like it gets overstretched, right? And then it takes time where it has to like tighten back up and heal back up. And sometimes it takes physical therapy, but also rest, but definitely nurturing and love. And so I could feel with my breath, it almost felt like that, like, nurturing and nourishing a ligament, and just the time to heal by continual, consistent attention and gentleness, and with self and self-love and all of that. And then as far as the totem, I mean, literally higher self, I became my red-tailed hawk, which is my spirit guide. So I shape shifted into that. I could feel the grounding, the hawk coming into me, and then the breath going out, the hawk going back out and taking the higher perspective and swirling. And I've been seeing, my partner and I both have been seeing so many hawks, and they've been coming
Yes.
close to us. And of course, we've been working on this, like how to stay ourselves as we keep this and grow this, amazing connection. And so it's all about these really healthy boundaries. And we've been like, wow, look at the hawks. But the red-tailed hawk in particular, they're my very much a symbol of a healthy, ideal partnership for me too, because they mate for life. So they are very monogamous. We always like to compare relationships to these animals and how they behave, and chickens and roosters, but then there's like hawks that are monogamous. And then but they're very chivalrous, where the male hawk does like this dance and swirl and tries to get her attention. She's just like you said, the woman chooses, the feminine chooses. She's like, all right, like, I don't know, like what you get. And if she likes his dance and his swirls and swoops and dives, she'll fly
Wow.
with him, and they'll fly together. And so once they're flying together, then they equally hunt. They hunt together. They work together. They both build the nest together. They both sit on the eggs together. It's
Oh,
very, egalitarian type relationship, but that romance and that chivalry is still there. And so for me, that's kind of like my ideal partnership. And it's also the balance in being a human being, and also being able to be in your individual self, which is your predominantly masculine or feminine energy. Most of us have a dominant one. And then also, how do you coexist and find that balance with each other and that connection with each other? So hawk was my totem, and that
mm,
was very beautiful to like
beautiful.
sit.
So now, where's the area where your boundaries feel a little overstretched?
It's family. It's always family. And it's my children in particular, because I have all this guilt about being a business owner, a single mom, a PhD
Mm.
student. It's like, I'm not a good mom. I'm not a good student. I'm not doing anything right. So the trigger is when everything when I get overwhelmed, and the one little domino goes, and I lose the whole thing can go, and all falls down. And then what do? I beat myself up with guilt. And then once that guilt sets in, then I'm like, oh, I have to do this for my children. Then I'm like, do I? And pretty soon I'm falling asleep snuggling my son because he needs me, rather than
Mm.
writing a paper that actually was due last week. And so in the end, I mean, my children come first, and they will always know they're loved and I was there for them. But there's places I could have set a boundary and actually taught them good boundaries, and still got my shit done. So that's the
Yeah, so I would love for like the next time that you feel that your boundary has been overstretched, like what you just said is a great example, like where you feel guilty because you're like, oh man, why did I snuggle my son? When truthfully it was like, well, something in you, or you could also think like, well, something in me knows that this is what is necessary right now.
Mhm,
So it's kind of like, okay, what could I have done? Like, what are the other things that led up to this where this would have been okay to do this if there were other things that had been done before this, right? So anytime now that your higher self has spoken to you, so your subconscious has told you, one, the red tail hawk, and two, the family, okay,
mhm,
and particularly your children. This is where you feel overstretched. But when you were talking about where you are strong,
mhm,
right? It was the red tail hawk, but it was also in describing the relationship of the red tail hawk
mm,
and the things that you saw,
mhm,
like that one person really like one of the characters really just shows up and does its thing. And if the other character is feeling like, yes, that is my vibe and that is my level that I want to dance on, I'm going to dance with you.
mhm,
Right. And that is a very important element that your subconscious is speaking to you, that is
mhm,
important for you to feel how to strengthen your boundaries. So
mhm,
there's probably a conversation or something that wants to come through with the people that feel like you're flexing your boundaries, like your family or your children in particular,
mhm,
where it's like, hey, how can we do this dance for each other?
mhm, mhm.
What's the dance look like for us that this red tail hawk is doing?
Yep.
Because this is actually where I'm strong and where I'm going to thrive. And this
Mhm,
is where I can bring my medicine that I have, because these are all the other areas where like I get it and it's working out perfectly. So
mhm,
you're going to take, and then also the knees. The knees represented, overextension, and also the knee, of the body, the emotional energy of the knee is it's moving forward, the drive to move forward. The feet is feeling the support in moving forward, but the knees is like purposeful drive to move forward. And
mhm,
sometimes if we feel pressure to move forward too fast, we can overextend.
mhm,
Or if we try to switch direction too quick, we can dislocate,
mhm,
right? And so whenever I was just sharing this with somebody today, is that no matter what, an injury is always a sign to
mhm.
slow down and to just like whatever wherever you're at in terms of moving forward and feeling pressured and pushed to move forward, to slow down. And you just expressed that too, was that the overextension, there's this slow, also what you need in terms of the boundaries with your family and children is you need slow incremental moves
Mm-hmm.
towards feeling like your boundaries are being respected.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
that would be actually a sign for you that there's real progress going on. So like, yeah, family meeting agreement time,
mm-hmm.
where it's kind of just like, what is most important for you all? What do you all want? Let
Mm-hmm.
their masculine energy speak.
Yeah.
Well, it's really important for me to be able to have my social media or phone time this many hours a day. Well, this is what I want with my video games or chill out, sleep time, leave me alone time. Rah, rah, rah. Everybody does it. Then you get to go into your feminine and say, okay, I understand you, little masculine energies.
Mm-hmm.
My feminine red tail hawk,
Mm-hmm.
in order to provide you with that, this is what I need to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
they get what they want based on your
Mm-hmm.
strength in the boundaries and honoring yourself and who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And this is that battery and that energy, feminine, masculine energy that I was talking about, that I notice really helps the women that I work with their partners. And then usually their partners want to come in and it's like, okay, now let's start to work with families. Let's start to work with communities.
Yep.
But, that that would probably start to, now you're going to not have to deal with this boundary issue again.
Mm. Well, and as you're speaking and during the intervention, I'm thinking of times when it's worked well, and times when it's fallen apart. And when it's worked well, it's, yeah, things are organized. It's working like a well-oiled machine. Like those conversations are happening. They're being respected. Those sorts of things. It's like I'm not having to squawk. Speaking of hawk, squawk as much or dive down and nip something in the bud as much. I'm not having to enforce, because there's that piece of like enforcing boundaries, especially when you're dealing with children. They're wild little energies. It takes like a decade before you can even somewhat get them in somewhat of a mold to be a compassionate being and decent citizen. It's like constant work, right? um but yeah, it's once it kind of falls apart, it can fall apart when we're tired or we're hungry, or there's a wild card thing that comes in and disrupts the balance, especially for single moms, right? And when you have so much on your plate. And so I think that structure is good, and then that compassion and being homeodynamic too, and knowing that it's not all about the balance just on every day of the week, but how do you ultimately go back to the balance? Some days I'm totally off,
Right.
but I'm doing real good at cooking healthy meals and I'm nailing it. But I'm off on like getting my schoolwork done in time, or responding to text messages or emails or whatever else. And then another week I circle back around and I nurture that part, but then I'm off on the healthy eating and I'm having to eat out now and grab food or whatever. And then that affects my health. It's like everything is, this thing, but it's like this efficiency is what is important. And knowing, and this is what also I was thinking about as you were talking, is knowing what are those actions and what are those moves that give you the biggest bang for your buck, that are the most
Exactly.
dynamic, that's what's really going to make the difference in the dance, right? And
Well, and what's cool is it's just like a dance. See, like when you have big dance move performer, those big dance moves allow you to flex and flow in the little smaller moves, and kind of like it wins the audience. And
Mhm.
those big
Yeah,
dance
there
moves
you go,
wins
there
the
you go.
audience, so that like you can do some other stuff and they'll be like, oh snap, like they start to trust you, like, oh shit, I want to see what else she can do. Right. So this is when you see those big dance moves and you are able to communicate, that's where you start, because sometimes it feels so overwhelming too. It's like, where the fuck do I start with the big dance moves? Like, what are the big change makers in terms of boundaries? So like, what if somebody, Steffi had asked, what if somebody doesn't honor and respect your boundaries? Well, see, where's the biggest dance move there where like they fucked up? It's like, man, you shouldn't have put your hand on my ass that quick, or oh, you shouldn't have dipped me, or you dipped me the wrong way, right? Like, what was the one thing that really shifted it where it was like, oh, you crossed my boundary?
Mhm.
Start there. And really also remember, ultimately, that's a reflection of work you have to do deep down,
Mhm.
because you actually attracted this person to even flex your boundary in the first place, because there's something deeper that needs to heal. But
Mm-hmm.
when you focus on that big dance move, then those smaller dance moves of relating to this person, you allow adaptability and agility, because you said something really powerful just now, Natasha. You said 1 week I'm high, I'm like, I'm doing great meals. Another week I'm like not working out as much. But see, this is what tantric is being all about.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck that shit.
Mm-hmm.
The highest system of order is do what you feel and feel what you do. Boundaries, when boundaries can be moment to moment with no shame nor guilt, but you're expressing exactly what you're feeling in every moment and in alignment. And hey, yesterday I was a vegetarian. Oh shit, today I decided to do this and not carry guilt about it. Like, that's pretty ultimate. When
Yeah.
you can like be on reset every time and own and trust. Now that is like, wow.
Tantra, that's mindfulness, that's assessing each moment, moment to moment. Absolutely.
And it's like, hey, this week, like, how about celebrate the fact that you're able to ride this wave, and you're listening to your body's telling you exactly what you want and what you feel. Because I'll tell you something, owning that joy and bliss is going to be way more healthy in the long run than carrying any kind of shit about like, ah, fuck, like I'm down and I'm not taking care of my diet this week.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of it just being like, oh wow, like my look at how like what's being shown for me this week in terms of where I want to go. But you'll feel more able to do that with your boundaries, and trust that you're doing that if you know those big dance moves. Right? Like, stick to those big dance moves that make you know that, like for me, it's like showing up for my biggest contracted work. That's like a big dance move for me. Like, that's the lead. And then all the other pieces of like clients and workshops, like those all fill in, and those that allows me to be flexible with the other work that I do. So that's like a piece for me, right? And it allows me to like do
Yeah,
that. So
and it goes back to the conversation that you and I were having the other day when I texted you late at night and you're like, I'm up, I keep waking up and I have these creative ideas and I work a little bit and then I go back to sleep and I'm like, oh man. And so we were talking about our menstrual cycles and where we were falling in that
yeah,
space and how that affects our energy. And that's why I love planning my calendar according to my menstrual cycle, because that's my
yes.
energy, that's like tells me how much gas is in the tank for certain tasks. And that's kind of like, your audience or your crowd, where is the love while you're doing those dance moves. And I found that I do not do well with masculine coaches at all, even if it's a woman that is too masculine, because I do not operate in that I do
Right.
not operate linearly. It does not compute. And I cannot pull off what I pull off. If I had a linear focus, it wouldn't work. It would not work. I would constantly feel like a failure every night when I went to bed. But if I
Mm,
put a bigger, more holistic view of everything that I've accomplished. And I had
mm,
someone say to me like, well, I don't know, because you had to reschedule this appointment, you showed up late for this and you showed up late for this, and it looks like you're not in integrity. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. At the end of the day, like, I went through a divorce, a PhD, I built a business alongside all of those things. Like, I'm kicking ass. Like, but you have to look at the long-term view. You can't just look at the weekly view because it's going to look like I'm a failure. But you look at how it all evens out, and
exactly.
then it goes back to things like, again, it's really easy to be aggressive or passive, but where's the assertiveness? So I can map in my calendar and knock out, like, I'm going to study on this day, I'm going to study 8 hours, 10 hours, 10 hours, 10 hours, and map it out and get all my schoolwork done. But I hit that third 8 hour shift, and now I'm like, I am starved for social connection that fuels me up. I have not spoken to a friend in 3 weeks. I have not moved my body. Like, I cannot even focus enough to sit down and write anything. And so that's that feminine intelligence, right? Of being like, okay, I do have this to do, but it's not going to get done. I'm just going to sit here and stare at the paper or the screen anyway. So I might as well go dance with Kirti in the tree. I might as well like go hang out with my sisters and go to the farmer's market and laugh my ass off, and then come back and scramble and try to get the paper done.
Exactly.
I finished my energy medicine course in 10 days, an 8-week course, after we did like it was a ritual, a ceremonial ritual where I set intentions. I called in the goddesses. I'm like, let me be a channel for this work and I just nailed it. Boom, 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 boom. That is not
Wow.
with that is not the masculine energy. That is the divine feminine right there,
Yes.
saying now is the moment of truth. Now is this moment of perfect alignment and it needs to get done. I'm going to channel that and
Yeah.
ask for help and support and do it. So I know we've cycled around and maybe gotten a little bit off topic as the feminine energy does, but I know this is all really valuable stuff, and that was a very powerful exercise, and I feel blessed and honored to have been able to be led through that. And I think anybody that's watching or listening right now that did it along with us is probably really benefiting as well, so thank you.
Yeah, I mean, those totems, anytime you go in and receive a new totem, you can do that. But now anytime you feel overstretched, think of your knees and think of the red tail hawk, and you'll notice immediately, like your subconscious will be like, okay, this is what we need to do before you start to go into that place again of like, why am I being overstretched? You fucked with my boundaries.
Mhm.
But yeah, also because the knees, they happened when you were younger, and so that's actually a really perfect thing to think about where
Long
it's.
history.
Hmm.
And like in the womb creating. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So, and then, that reminds me too, when you were speaking earlier, and perhaps we can wrap this up too with giving people some really short, concise tips
Mm.
about boundaries with exes. But when we're talking about the masculine and feminine energies, it was really interesting for me to learn that when obviously the egg, it's a biological process. The egg is ripe. Been preparing for generations to receive the sperm that was just created
Mhm.
2 weeks ago or whatever else, and the fastest sperm gets there. But if that sperm is damaged, so it has to go through these different layers, these barriers, almost like these obstacles to get to the sweet spot, which is the point of creation of egg and sperm coming together, right? But the egg actually will repair the sperm. So if there's something
Mm.
wrong with the sperm, not only does she say like, no, I am the gatekeeper on her outer layers, but he has to go through almost like these steps. And if he wants to come into the castle, the sweet spot, he actually has to she'll repair some of his DNA. That is amazing to me. And then it just supports your point of the feminine being that enforcing that boundary, which sometimes feels like a lot of work. And I feel like, again, going back to Steffi's question, if somebody is continuing to overstep your boundary, don't talk to them. Like, that's the time to cut them off and be like, you know what? I don't need this. Or, like you said, you might attract this, but it also might be a test. Be like, oh, have you really healed? Because the first time they do it, you're like, get out of here. And then you move on and it doesn't even bother you. You don't even think about it for longer than 30 seconds. That's a good sign. There's going to be those little tests. So I think like all of this that we're talking about is the deep, deep, deep level of these surface level things that work really well when we're also we're doing the work on our own of what's underneath it. But for you, Kirti, what would you say if
Mm.
you had or maybe what would you tell your clients if they had an ex-lover that was coming and messaging them maybe something slightly sexual, or like, hey, I remember when we used to do this and that was really hot, or really missing you. That's a classic one, right? I miss you. That's a classic text. What would you tell your clients? Number one, if they were maybe singling and mingling, but not necessarily interested in going backwards in their relationship dynamics, or if
Right.
they're in a really lovely relationship. And for me, that's when it's the hardest. It's
I
like,
know.
I don't want to be in this partnership and have my phone going ding, 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 and you can't control when people are going to reach out and contact you. And one of the couple agreements of boundaries that we've set is that if somebody comes back into your life, letting each other know right away the nature of that relationship, full
Mm.
disclosure of everything that happened,
Mm.
whether it was a sexual relationship or not. That way your partner knows as much, if not more, about that other person and not the other way around. So that's part of that authenticity piece.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Well, I would say the first thing is to really assess how do you feel about the person that's reaching back out to you, and see, is there any areas in your energy field or in your own internal desires? Is there any part of you that, I mean, own the part of you that might feel good from receiving those texts?
Mm-hmm.
Because there might be there's probably something in you that's still open to receiving that, And so just check in with it and see, like, is that really true? Like, is that really about me? Am I really open? And is it because I'm wanting something more here? Is there still attraction there? Is there, what what is the seed emotion that I'm feeling about this person? You
Mm-hmm.
really want it. You don't ever want to shut down a part of yourself for the sake of pleasing someone else. So really get clear with what you want first and foremost. Like, you know, because there, you never know. Like, if this is somebody that is really important to you, and maybe you don't want to have a sexual or like genital relationship with this person, but you would like to be able to check in with them and talk to them, and have a, maybe like a flirtatious friendship because you guys have been together, but there's no desire to be in a relationship with them, but you don't want to just like cut them off.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if that's a desire for you, then that means that you are going to have to speak that to your partner.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not able to speak that to your partner, then that needs to be looked at. That what in you is afraid to speak your truth. So really get clear with what you're feeling. Now, like, if you're very clear that this is not you, that this is not your desire, and that this is actually a symptom, a repeated pattern of you not holding the line with your boundaries in terms of communication and interaction with
Mm-hmm.
this person, and it is true. It is always a reflection of your actions. So there's been enough times where you flexed it, where they have felt like they can come this far. So now you're in a place where you're ready to like be like, okay, well, that's fine. Normalize changing your mind. You could have said yesterday, I'm totally okay with talking to you. And then the next day be like, you know what? I actually am not okay. And I'm sorry. That might have been confusing for you. But I feel very clear today that I'm not okay. And then say the next day, you're like, you know what? I'm totally okay. You can do that. Now the other person has their sovereignty and might be like, this is too much changing your mind for me. Clearly, this is not something I want to do. However, it's so important that if you change your mind, that you flexed a boundary, and so somebody has been able to get close in terms of how they're talking to you, communicating, or their physical presence, and now you're feeling that they are abusing that space.
Mm-hmm.
You need to think of that as like, it's just like if somebody was physically coming into your space.
Mm-hmm.
Emotionally, it's the same thing energetically. So if you know that, it's like, oh, wow, this is a symptom again of me not speaking my truth, which
Mm-hmm.
was, what I got really clear with is like, wow, I'm always the harmonizer who
Mm-hmm.
just wants everybody to be happy. And so I'll do anything, and I'll compromise my own boundaries for the sake of what other people need. And once I realized, like, oh, wow, this is actually about that,
Mm-hmm.
now it's time for you to do some chakra work,
Mm-hmm.
do some energy work, hypnosis work. And
Mm-hmm.
you're like, hey, I'm really clear that this boundary thing is deeper, and I'm ready to do the work to get where it's at, and I'm ready to let it go. And then you find what channel speaks to you: Reiki, hypnosis, movement medicine, Qigong. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
What avenue speaks to you to get this done? And if you're somebody that knows how to self source, will go in and do what you know how to do to start to clear and get clear with that pattern,
Mm-hmm.
right?
And I think also it's very common, especially since we're doing the show during Mercury retrograde, and it's a very common Mercury retrograde for past things to come back up again, to be resolved or healed, for closure, to be revisited, redone, reworked, all that stuff. And so the big, Instagram meme is like, oh, watch out for the exes kind of thing. And so people, make jokes about it or whatnot, but it does happen. And when you are single and you're not really attached, I think it's very common for people to want and allow past lovers to come cycle back through or come back around, because sometimes it's a beautiful relationship. It's just the timing isn't right, or the alignment isn't right, or somebody's got this to do, or they're moving here, or they're doing this, and now you've come back together and you've aligned for this moment. And so it's not about, like, in that moment, we're not saying, oh, they're an ex or a past, leave them in the past, because I think that's a little bit savage. And you might be, more of a connector and more of a relator than that, especially if you're someone that's not, you know, constantly in a relationship, and you spend long periods of time being single. So there's that piece too. And I want to be clear that everybody knows, who's listening, is that what I hear you saying, Kirti, is that assess where you're at first and assess what your true absolute needs are: physical, emotional, for connection, for friendship, for not even like, you might not even be having sex, but maybe you just want to cuddle or get a massage or get some kind of human touch. And I think that's something, again, with lockdown and whatnot, that we're reassessing and really getting clear on our needs as we're being more discerning about some of our choices and who we spend our time with, as
Right.
resources and opportunities are lower than they've been historically in the past, perhaps.
Right. Right.
So I want to just put that out there for people too. And also, you know, in that process, reassessing, is this healthy for me? How am I going to feel afterwards? Is it nourishing? Does it really fill me up? Or is it just kind of coming by and, like I say, I like to use a metaphor, plucking the fruits and keep going? When you work so hard to grow that apple on
Right.
your beautiful tree with your, your roots, and you've been
Yeah.
watering it and sun's coming out and somebody's like, oh, this is a delicious apple, thank you, and then leaves, and then pretty soon all your fruit is gone. It's like, damn, and they didn't think to add some sunshine or water or give back to that
Right.
energy source.
Yeah, and I mean, another real important thing is like as beings who have wombs or uterus space that give birth, like every time you are making love and receiving that sexual sensual energy, just know that you are literally the earth, and the earth just multiplies and magnifies that energy that you're exchanging. So, reconnecting with the past lover, you are literally replanting those energetic seeds. So
Mm-hmm.
know, like, if that's what you want waves to put, that is where, you are really understanding the magic of your being, is that that when you sexually interact with this person, you're putting all of that, you're putting that energy back out again. You're recycling it and putting it back out, and all sides of it, all emotions of it, you're willing to take on again.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I have a friend who's a physical therapist. She was on my show a while back, Michelle Rooney, and she didn't talk about it during that show, but she's told me about how our nervous systems wire together. And when she shared one time how she ran into a past lover at the gym, and she was a really difficult breakup, and she'd been doing really good at that separation and creating that distance to heal and move on, and then ran into him, and he came and like gave her a big hug. She's like, don't you dare touch me, kind of thing, because she didn't want to rewire with him, and she didn't want her nervous system to rewire with him in that physical touch moment, because she had done so good. Once she could get over that hump, then she could engage in more of a casual touch or whatever, but she was still feeling like she was vulnerable. And she said it was about 3 months, like 90 days, to kind of break that um, rewiring physiologically, and with some of the neuroscience and the way the brain is working with the nervous system. And I thought that was really fascinating. And
Yeah.
so being mindful of that, even without the sexual energy, and knowing where we're at. And then we're also just connectors, we're connected beings. So maybe we get a little bit of our cup filled up, and we know we're not going to get the whole thing filled up, but maybe we're in a space where it's like, we'll take that little bit too. We could just need a sip to quench our thirst. But it's a personal choice. We all get to make those choices, and as long as we are making the choice before we engage in responding to the text or inviting the person over or cooking them dinner or whatever else it is, then we're fine, because we made that mindful choice. But if we just go into it, sure, 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 and then afterwards get upset at them or us because we didn't say anything, or we didn't slow it down enough to make up our mind, then that's where the work is done too. That's on us,
Yeah.
that's on us
Yeah.
as the feminine partner. But also, I know I'm speaking to men here as well, and non-binary folks, and all of those folks that have found themselves in this side of the equation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's a deep topic, and it's something that takes effort and skill. And I think probably another show topic for another day are in that more dating state, when lovers are coming through and they're calling you last minute, like, hey, can I come by tonight? Or because that's a boundary too, right? And that's
And sometimes it's a test to just see, like, if you're even still available,
yep,
and willing to,
yep.
are you willing to, even think of the idea, entertain the idea of them.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and where are you with your time and your, how valuable is your time and your energy, and how valuable is it to set an appointment with somebody? And this works even with friendships too. It's like you have those friends that are like, and I'm a spontaneous person, and sometimes I find myself with some free time, and I'll reach out to some friends and be like, hey, can you meet me for this? And they say no, but I don't. I'm like, oh, cool. I
Yeah.
don't expect them to say yes. But if you are dating somebody that's the only time they're ever trying to get together with you, what is that telling you? They're not really invested in securing that time. Same with friendships. If they're not ever like securing that time, and it's always going to be, well, it was mutually beneficial, they're not really, they're not really invested in that relationship. And it's not even a personal thing. It's sometimes it's just they have, their choices, but they're in their what's working for them, and you are not a part of of that. They're not considering making that an equal choice. So yeah, lots of things to consider. And I can't tell who is still on here because I can't find that out. But we're not getting any comments. But I think this is probably a good time to wrap it up. We've been on here for 100 minutes, 111 minutes. 111. It's
Of
8:41.
course we were.
Yeah, 111.
Yeah, I loved it. Thank you so much for creating the space for this again. I think it's so important. It feels so good for me to just have a place to come and talk out, my ideas. And yeah, I just love being live, with you.
Yeah,
So thanks.
it's nice. It's really nice. I like how deep we can go with with whatever the topic is. I really appreciate your openness and your authenticity and
Mm,
your grace and your wisdom and your skill and all of that.
mm.
So definitely enjoy co-creating this with you as well. And that being said, I know you have a couple things coming up, and you're no longer on the gram.
No,
But this is your space. What do you have to
yeah,
invite people to? A mailing list or whatever? How do people get in touch with you if they
totally.
want to work with
Thank
you?
you. Thank you. I love that. Yeah, my website is a great place. Dilseculture.com, DILSE culture, CULTURE.com.
It'll be in
And
the caption
everything.
too,
What's
eventually.
that?
It'll be in the caption eventually when
Yes,
people
awesome.
watch. Mhm.
Great. Yeah, everything is there. Everything that I do is there. And really I'm super open. Most of them are invite only, but because I'm not on Instagram and social media, those who are seeing it are all invite only kind of exclusive folks anyway. But big things that we have coming is this Friday we are hosting a workshop for a limited amount of couples who are really interested in doing some of this communication work that we were talking about today, and how does that lead into sensuality and actually helping each other heal the patterns as they come up through some tantric lacing, embodied meditation and pressure points and caress, and just how can we like love ourselves through what we feel like is so wounded, but it's actually like, oh, it's orgasmic. So
Mhm.
really being able to do that, that's this Friday. If that interests you, it's called Evolve Love. So you can go to the website and see that. And
This
then every
12th, yeah? Friday the 12th?
Sunday, Friday
Friday
the
the
12th,
12th? Yeah. 2 1.
7 to 10 PST. So I know for my East Coasters, some of my East Coast clients are like, we'll try. It's like, that's late.
So hard. Yeah.
Yeah, so they might, we'll have to do something for East Coast folks, maybe another time. Um,
It's a
but
Friday.
yeah, that's a big one to get involved with. And then every Sunday, I teach dance locally here in San Diego. So if you're in San Diego or you're visiting or you're passing through on a Sunday, you come check us out.
And I would like to add, as a participant of that dance class most days, it is much more than dance. Like
Oh yeah.
I want people to know this, because if I was going into a class where I was going to have to learn choreography, I would not go, because I am so uncoordinated. Like I have the worst memory, body memory, mental like memory. That's not my strong suit. But it is a class where we're encouraged to move and move energies through our body, and the music is so good, and always like just such good music, world beats. You can't help but not want to like move your hips or shake around, and
Mm,
bare feet in the earth. Easy to socially distance if that's important to you, and the fresh air and the sunshine. I mean, it's so much more than a dance class. So I want people to know that as well.
thank you. Yeah, yeah. It's I call it church. It's my church, the Cathedral of the Trees.
Mhm. Absolutely. And we usually have some little animal guides that come, squirrels and birds, and they are definitely vocal as well along with us, and some plenty of passerby. Yeah, thank you. And I want to just invite everybody that's here to my newsletter, my mailing list, because I am also kind of making that transition off of social media.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to save the really good, juicy stuff for the folks that are here on YouTube, and for the folks that are subscribing, and keep that a little bit more sacred, that newsletter. So if you're interested in staying in touch with the free content offerings that I've got, I think 5 of them now each week. I've got one on Clubhouse on Fridays at 10. I've got this show every Monday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard, and I'm doing bedtime meditations again at 9 p.m. Tuesday and Friday. People love
Wow.
those. Do card pulls and bedtime meditations right here on YouTube. So those can be rewatched again for people that
Wow, I love
like
it.
a guided meditation. Those are all free things. But of course, I also have my mind body skills groups for healing trauma is what I'm really gathering folks for now, and oh, past life regression circles. So cacao plus past life regression, which I know, Kirti, you were at the last one. So the next one is coming up March 12th, which is a Friday, and that is all on my website as well, natashaedwina.com. So
Mm,
plenty of opportunities to work with us, and Kirti and I run in a very authentic, skilled tribe. So if we can't help you with something, we know somebody who can. So definitely don't hesitate to reach out, and we'll get you in the right hands if it's not ours.
most definitely.
So thank you again. Thank you for everyone that was watching and your questions. And I hope this was super helpful. And Kirti and I, next time we circle back around, we will be talking about calling in your king.
Yay.
Ooh-wee. Yeah, we have some things to say about that one.
Yeah, you're a master at that now.
Well, I don't know about that, but I will say that Kirti told me your king is coming. And I was like, I'm glad you think so, because I'm not seeing any indication of that around me as I scan the horizon. But sure enough, she was right. It happened very quickly after she
Yeah.
had that download. So she knows what she's talking about. Join us, find out how to do it. I realize I did lots of legwork prior to that point, so that's part of it too. So we
Yes.
both have some things to share about that.
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
All
All right.
right, love. I'll see you
Love you very
soon.
much. We'll see you soon. Bye bye.
Bye.